Okay, so we just got done talking about the jump track and the boarding party track, and different, how those work and strategies and when to use the jump track. The FTL, we were talking about that. That's the first location on Galactica, and we're going to kind of go through the different locations on Galactica and talk about, how you use them, different human ways to use them, Cylon ways to use them, etc., etc., and just kind of go into a little bit of depth there. We did talk about humans wanting to use FTL on, blue -1 and blue -3 to jump early, and that being a valid strategy. Not always the best idea, but definitely not always the worst idea either. But FTL can actually be really useful for Cylons late in the game. If population is really low, you can go ahead and activate FTL because there's a 3/4% chance, there's 75% chance that the humans will lose population. So it's a valid strategy for for a late game play, especially if they're at like 7 distance and maybe they have 2 population and you're on blue -3. Man, that's a great time to go ahead and just try to activate FTL. So let's see, weapons control. So weapons control gives you the ability to attack a Cylon ship. Now that could be a base star, it could be a heavy raider, and it could be a regular old raider. Okay, typically you're probably not going to use weapons control to shoot at raiders. It seems like it's kind of overkill since you only get to shoot at one. If you're trying to attack raiders from Galactica, you'd probably use command. But for base stars, it's really the only way, the best way to attack base stars, either that or with a nuke. So that's basically what you'll do if you have a couple of base stars out there or a base star out there. You want to go ahead and take a shot at it. This is where you do it, and you roll a die, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but that's what that space is for. Command is a better way to attack raiders, and it's more effective for raiders. So you're using command to activate the unmanned Vipers. Like for instance, when the game starts, there's an unmanned Viper in here in Sector 6 and here in Sector 5. So you could activate those to come attack the raiders. That's definitely a better way for attacking raiders because you get more shots. You get twice as many shots. And remember with Apollo, if you activate an unmanned Viper from the reserves up here, so if you activate an unmanned Viper from the reserves, basically when you launch a Viper, then Apollo can actually jump in that Viper and take an extra action. So that's a way to get extra actions, which is awesome. Okay. All right, Admiral's quarters. Okay. The great thing about Admiral's quarters is you can use that to send people to the brig. Who doesn't love putting people in jail? So that's pretty awesome. If you think they're a Cylon, throw them in the brig. If you're a Cylon and you think they're a human, throw them in the brig. Just be careful that they're not on the same team as you. But nobody wants to be in the brig. It's the worst place you can be. Yeah, that's what that's for. Pretty straightforward. Communications lets you look at the back of 2 civilian ships, secretly look at the back of 2 civilian ships, and then move them to adjacent areas. Okay. Now you can say what's on the back of them. Actually, I'm not sure. I have to look to see if you're allowed to say exactly what's on the back of them. But because sometimes I have to check the rules on that one. But anyway. But yeah, you look at the back of them and then you move them to an adjacent area. This is actually a really powerful space. If you're humans moving, the civilians is often like a safer bet than trying to fight the raiders, because you could just keep the raiders circling Galactica. So you wait till they get to here, right? Like let's say they start here. The raiders start in this section and your civilians start over here in Sector 4. Once the raiders move to Sector 2, then you move your civilians to Sector 5. And since raiders always go clockwise, right, you just try to keep your civilians on the opposite side. Now, of course, you could get a Cylon attack card, and they might drop raiders in a different sector, but it's definitely a valid strategy, and it's often more effective than attacking the raiders. So, so definitely something to think about. How would you use this space if you're a Cylon? Well, that's pretty obvious. If in that situation, you could actually move a civilian in this direction, right, towards the raiders that are coming at them. And this says look at the back of 2 civilian ships. You can actually look at the back of one civilian ship twice. Like you could look at it, put it down, look at it again, and then move it to the next section. So, all right. And then let's talk about the research lab. Research lab lets you draw 1 engineering or 1 tactics skill card, which can be handy, especially you definitely run into times in the game where you don't have enough blue cards, which really stinks. So you can use engineering to go ahead and get those or the research lab to get blue cards. And definitely red or purple cards tend to be, we tend to always be wanting more strategic planning cards, and so that's definitely a place to draw cards, especially if you can get XO'd and you can draw two cards there. It's kind of nice. Not a really great place for Cylons, but except that engineering cards are really useful to spike skill checks. So if you're an unrevealed Cylon, especially if you're sort of a soft reveal, which is everyone knows you're a Cylon, but you're still a human because maybe you've got like a real powerful position or something like that, then you can use the research lab to be drawing skill cards, blue skill cards, so that you can spike all the checks. And let's see, the hangar deck. Hangar deck is where you launch your Vipers, okay? And when you launch your Vipers, don't forget it's an action. It's not a move. You don't move out of the hangar deck. You take an action to get out of the hangar deck. And then when you take your action, you do get 1 more action after that. Okay, we'll do another video for the armory, the sick bay, and the brig.